how I realized, and the day I realized strategy was not the answer in my beauty business. But before I get into that, I just want to come on and introduce myself and tell you a little bit about my backstory. So, I'm Kelly Williams, I'm the coach and the owner of Beauty Boss Mentor. Let's go back to when I was 6 years old. My dad had a construction business and he went bankrupt and we lost everything, our house, our car. We were broke, everything. And then 2 years after that, we lost everything, well, most of our possessions in a house fire. So I grew up at a very young age in an environment where there was a lot of arguments, there was a lot of tension. A lot of it was around money and feeling like the poor friend. Like, I would watch people going off to Europe and going on these amazing holidays, and we didn't get that. But don't get me wrong, my parents tried their very best to make sure we didn't go without. But I had that huge thing. I was the poor friend. You had to work hard for money, that money doesn't grow on trees, and it's too risky owning your own business because you can lose it and then you can lose everything. And then I was bullied severely at school, especially at high school. I was pushed downstairs. I had books thrown at my face. I had my dinner money taken off me. I would skip school because I just did not want to be there. And there was a lot of times I would lay in my bedroom sobbing, and I just didn't want to be here anymore. And I actually developed an eating disorder from it as well, because that's the only thing I could control in my life, was what I was putting into my body. And then at 17, I was told I had endometriosis and I might not ever have children. I met my husband at, I think it was like 19, 20, and we started trying for a baby pretty quick, because obviously he knew what I'd been told, and we had multiple miscarriages. And then we eventually fell pregnant, and I ended up having a beautiful little boy, but the birth was horrendous. I ended up needing an emergency C-section. Then I got severe postnatal depression, where they were going to lock me up in a mother and baby unit so I could have 24 hours care. And if it wasn't for my parents, I would have been put in there. But we moved into their house, and that is where my mum took on the role, whilst my husband was at work, of looking after me. So the journey wasn't easy. And to be honest, it didn't get much easier after that either. So I always wanted to do beauty. I had a dream when I was a kid that I would own my own salon one day. And then when my son was 3, I actually went back and put myself back through beauty school to get my diploma. And I was so excited. I went and got a job in a salon once I was qualified. And then I set up a little beauty business from home. But it was always on the side, because I had that conditioning that you have to work for somebody else to have that stable income. It's too risky working for yourself. It won't work out. You'll end up losing everything. So I had quite a few jobs throughout the years in different beauty salons, and I did generally learn like so much of my skill set, and it was great. And then when my son was about 6, we decided to leave the UK and emigrate to Perth. And I'm not going to lie, the first 12 months I did struggle. I really did want to go home. As much as I hated my life in the UK, I was just so lonely. I didn't have any friends. My husband was FIFO, so that means he would go away for weeks at a time for work. So it was just me and my son. So I ended up getting a job in a salon here in Perth, and it was an hour away. So I had to drive an hour there, do my job, and then drive an hour home. And it got to about 9 months into it, and I was just like, this is just too hard with childcare. And I just felt so guilty on my son. And I ended up getting a job in a clinic, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. This is where I was first introduced into like parts of like body sculpting and cosmetic tattooing. Whereas before I was just doing like eyebrow wax and tints and, you know, lash lifts and stuff like that. And I worked for her for years. But again, I set up a little salon from home where I was doing like brow makeovers, I was doing like shellac. But I always focused more on working for somebody else. And I think a lot of it was I just wanted to be a part of something. I wanted to be a part of a team. Because of how I was bullied in school, I just wanted to be needed, to be loved. So I loved being part of a team. And then she ended up moving locations, which I followed her. But within a few months of moving location, unfortunately, it had to close. So essentially, I had no fucking job anymore. So I went and got a 10 grand loan, and I actually bought one of the fat freezer machines off her, and I set up from home here. And it was going pretty well. And then I think about 9 months into it, I had a phone call from her asking me to go back and manage the clinic. She had now moved into a different location because she was having to move to Melbourne. But obviously I told her, well, I now have Sculpt Beauty, because that's what my little business was called at the time. And she was like, that's no problem. Like, you can have a room in the salon and you don't have to pay rent and you can work out of there plus managing the clinic. So I was like, oh, great. And to be honest, in the beginning, it was going really well. But then the responsibility of me being the manager was a lot. And I was doing everything, not just the treatments, but managing the team, doing, you know, ordering the stock and the cleaning, literally doing everything. And so my business started to slide because I was so focused on hers. But I can't put the blame on to her for that, because that's a choice that I made. And maybe because deep down, I just generally didn't believe I could make a success of it, my business, on my own. So it carried on going like that for a few years. And then we hit March of 2020. The whole world shut down. COVID hit. And I woke up to a message one morning during lockdown saying she was not going to reopen the salon anymore. I literally lost my job there and then, left with nothing. And something inside of me just clicked. It really did. I ended up, during lockdown, instead of making TikToks and baking like everybody else was, I ended up rebranding, doing my social media, advertising. I even secured a room to rent for when we came out. I was going full time into my business, but I had everyone around me saying it's not the right time. The world's so unpredictable. People aren't spending money. But I just knew in my gut this was the right time. I'm not listening to anybody else anymore, and I'm doing it. And 2 weeks before we were allowed to start working again, we were broken into, and I had all of my beauty equipment and products stolen off me. Everything. The only thing that was not stolen was my fat freezing machine. And that is because, lucky enough, it was in the spare room. Then a week after that, I went to put myself on the fat freezer machine and the LED screen had stopped working. And I was like, what the fuck? The universe and the world is against me. Why is this happening to me? Why does all this shit keep happening to me? Because up until that moment as well, it wasn't just what happened during my childhood, like not being able to fall pregnant, miscarriages, and getting bullied. I also had some really serious health conditions. where I think it was about 13 years ago, I was told I had a tumor on my bowel and I needed an emergency surgery. And the surgery was very risky. And it was quite a high chance that, I wouldn't come out of the surgery. I ended up spending 9 days in hospital, 6 weeks at home recovering. Like, it was horrendous. Then 2 years after that, I had to have a full hysterectomy because of the endometriosis, and they took my ovaries. So I literally went into menopause overnight at the age of, I think I was 34 at the time. Then 2 years after that, I had to have my gallbladder removed because I had horrendous gallstones. So it just felt like every avenue in my life, the world was just against me. I was in just this such victim mindset. But I still wanted to give it a go with my business. And we came out of lockdown and it was going pretty well to begin with. It really was. Like, I was getting new clients booking in all the time. I was getting returning clients coming back, and everything I had learned from managing that clinic, I put into my salon. But I also realized how I didn't want to run a business as well. And I got busy pretty quick. And then I was working 8, 10, 12-hour days, back to back with clients, not really getting a lunch break, sometimes not going to the toilet. My husband was still FIFO, so I was trying to juggle my son as well. So I was trying to juggle motherhood, juggle the salon, and I was just so burnt out and overwhelmed. But this is what the industry says, right? To be successful, back to back with clients, working really long days, really long hours, being available all the time for your clients. Like, I would sit there at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, getting back to client inquiries and getting them booked in because I was just so scared that they were going to go somewhere else. So then I decided I was going to hire a coach. So I hired a strategy coach. And don't get me wrong, I learned a lot from it. I really did, about, tracking the back end of the business and everything. But I was working more than ever. And I was just so burnt out. And the inconsistency with the bookings as well. Like, one week you would be back to back working every hour under the sun, and then the next week you'd be really quiet again. So the income was just going like this all the time. And I was like, I don't get it. I'm so frustrated. I'm doing everything they're telling me to do, but nothing's changing. Or if it did change, it would only change for so long and then it would revert back. It just wasn't, I just didn't have that consistent growth, that profit. Like, I don't even think I was paying myself at the time. I was just taking whatever was left over after the expenses were coming out. And I was just so confused. I just didn't get it. I was like, what is wrong with me? Because I'm doing everything they're telling me to do and nothing is changing. And it went on like that for a while. I kind of like rode out the wave and just thought, oh, this is the way it is. I've just got to keep showing up, just keep posting content, the email marketing, and doing all the stuff that they're telling me to do. And then I came across a mindset coach. And I didn't have the money to invest into this mindset 12-week coaching course. But just something inside of me was like, something's got to give. Because I could tell you the day I actually realized that, I was in the gym and I was so exhausted, I dropped a weight on my face. And then it was my birthday that weekend, and I stood in my living room sobbing my heart out because I was just so overwhelmed and so exhausted. So I was like, I'm scared to invest into something else because I've already invested heavily into one thing and I've not got the outcome that I thought I was going to have. But I ended up investing. I'd done it over a payment plan because I didn't have thousands and thousands sat there at my disposal being able to invest into this. And I am kidding you not, my life changed. My business changed. I actually built my salon to 6 figures in under 9 months, working no more than 20 hours a week. My marriage wasn't suffering anymore because I was present at home when I went home, because I significantly scaled my hours back. I was profitable. I was earning more money. I was paying myself a really good wage each week, and I still had a big buffer in the bank after everything was paid. So I've been a home salon, I've rented a room, and I was even a commercial salon as well. I spent 60 grand on a commercial salon to walk into it on day one and realize I'd made a huge mistake, that I was chasing a childhood dream that no longer aligned with the life that I wanted. I wanted my business to work around my life and not the other way around. So I went back to renting a room, and everyone was like, oh my God, don't you see that as like a setback? And I was like, why would I? Why would I see that as a setback? Renting a room, I could lock my door up and leave. I went to Thailand for 3 weeks and my business did not suffer one bit. I was traveling. I was going to Thailand. I was going to Bali. I was going up to Broome. My husband was flying me up to Karatha to go spend a weekend with him when he was at work. I had created a salon that worked around my life and not drain it, all through the power of the internal work. Because 85% of business is mindset and only 15% is strategy. And my business continued year after year after year to get consistent growth each year. And then I was noticing in the beauty industry, everyone falling for what I fell for, what the beauty industry standard is of what success should look like, and just trying to slap another strategy on everything. And they're like, well, I'm doing all the strategies, I'm doing the marketing, I'm posting, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But they weren't actually growing and they weren't getting that consistent growth as well. And I was looking and I was like, because I know why. Because it wasn't the strategy that grew my business. It was me. It was doing the internal work on me, my beliefs, my values, my identity. Then once all of that was done, the strategy then came in and the strategy sticked and worked. Because strategy comes after you, the woman behind the business. That is where the work needs to be done first. And then strategy comes in second. So why do most beauty bosses only focus on business tactics and strategy? Because that is what we are told in the industry. That is what they shout about, is your marketing, your social media, all the strategies that come with it. And we believe them. But that's not your fault for believing it, because it's such a big thing that they are speaking about within the industry. But let's just say you've got 2 beauty bosses. You give both of them the same strategy, the exact same strategy. One it works for and one it doesn't. But how can it not work for both of them if they've been given exactly the same thing? Because they are not the same human beings. They don't have the same childhood, parents, friends, beliefs, values, the identity that they hold. Each human being is completely different. So that's why it can work for one, but not the other. Because in this industry, we are taught that you have to work so hard for it to be successful, to have your salon be successful. Well, I'm living proof of you don't. I was way more successful when I cut my hours back, started charging more, done the internal work. And I ended up looking around and be like, there's such a big gap in the industry where beauty business owners are not being taught or shown the silent driver of their business, the one that makes them successful. And that is you, the internal work. So I went and actually put myself back through school and I got certified in NLP, shadow work, mindset, nervous system regulation, and emotional intelligence. Because that is what creates successful business owners. Then the strategy comes in. And then I later went on to sell my beauty salon for 6 figures. 6 figures. There's not many people that can say that they've done that they've built such a profitable business that they could actually sell it. And the reason I sold it is because I wanted to go full-time into coaching, because I can see the pain in Beauty Boss's eyes and the frustration and the overwhelm and the burnout, the exact same thing that I went through all those years ago. So the old way of building a successful beauty salon is more strategy. Pray it works, more posting, more email marketing. The new way is the Unstoppable Beauty CEO way, my methodology, what I've put together. So there's 4 parts to this. Pillar 1, you've got CEO by design. Pillar 2, identity and mindset. Pillar 3, regulation, money, and shadow work. And pillar 4 is where we come in with a strategy. Because once the foundation is solid, which is you, the strategy will then work long term. So my question to you, are you leading your beauty salon or are you reacting to it? Are you building a business or are you surviving in it? Because there's 2 very, very different things. So if beauty bosses are focusing on the wrong things right now, what is the right thing? Come and watch episode 2 where I go into a little bit more about it.